to make some announcements. One of which, for those who attended the last session, Cynthia O'Gorick announced that she had published her book on the Chicago and Western Indiana Railroad. So she's in the back table there. And so if anyone's interested in pursuing this further, Cynthia, you're coming your way.
There's also the book about the South Shore Railroad. I have a couple of copies of that as well.
Oh, okay. And that you did earlier.
That's about 4 years ago.
4 years ago, yeah. Announcements, other announcements. The Association for the Wolf Lake Initiative with Calumet College and the Illinois Indiana Sea Grant are sponsoring a research summit in this very room on Friday, November 4th. And what we'll be looking at is recommendations from past research studies on the Wolf Lake watershed, and discussing current research and future research, and how this research is eventually implemented by government agencies and government planners. And so it's an all-day event beginning at 8:30. And if anyone's interested, let me know, and I'll send out a registration form. And I have one copy of the information. If anybody wants to take a look at it, just grab it and then pass it on to anyone else that's interested. There's a couple other things that the Association for the Wolf Lake Initiative is doing, and we're coming up with the Greening of the Arts Gallery Tour, and that starts actually here at 8:30 on Saturday, October 15th. And it's a car caravan where we visit different galleries in Whiting, Chicago's East Side, and Hammond. And so if anyone wants to join us, please meet here at 8:30 on October 21st. We'll have the reception and Greening of the Arts art show that begins at noon, and reception that will be held in the evening. So there are copies of this as well. And finally, Sherry Meyer asked that I pass on these notes. October 29th is the Field Museum's, it's the annual Calumet Heritage Conference. And it'll be from 9 a.m. to 12 at Lake Etta in Gary. This year the topic is the feasibility study proposed to become a national heritage area. You can register at calumetheritage.org. Admission is free this year during the afternoon, and we'll be having many field trips led by board members to their favorite Calumet places. And I don't know if Calumet College is part of that. Second event is the return of our art exhibit called Calumet Industrial Heritage. The opening gala will be Friday, October 21st. They're competing with us at the South Shore Arts Gallery in Crown Point. Details for both events will be available at our website, calumetheritage.org. And by the way, that art show appeared, I think, last winter at Substation 9. I think I went to several of those. I'm finished with the announcements, and I want to welcome Walter Skiba and to talk about the early history of Calumet College.
I've been on the faculty of the college since 1971, so I've been here a long time. I taught in the area of arts and humanities areas. I'm currently working on a project researching and writing the history of the college. So this presentation ties in with what I started doing this some years ago, and then off and on, and picked up on it, and we'll be doing much more. I was also a student on the East Chicago campus. I graduated in 1967, so I can give perspectives, multiple perspectives. What I'm going to do is I'm going to focus more on the early history of the college, but make some comparisons then and now, and go over some very significant development, say more recent developments. I hope to get through the move from East Chicago to Whiting. That's my goal, and some of the problems that resulted and how they were addressed. That's my goal. I have a lot of images, very little text on these slides, but I will give you enough facts to just clarify what was happening, and hopefully whet your appetite to learn more. And we should be finished with everything by 6 o'clock, I hope. My presentation and any questions. But it'll be an interactive presentation. I'm sure you'll probably want to join in sometime or other as we go along. They cared about us, and that their education really made a difference in their lives, and we got them a good job and a good career in the long run. I heard comments like this over and over again. Many mentioned too the value of the liberal arts courses, giving just more breadth and depth, and it just helped them overall with their careers. And I would ask, did you feel challenged and these, without exception, everybody has said, what? They were surprised that I even asked that question. Of course they felt sufficiently challenged. But I think just the universality of the positive comments really surprised me. I thought I'd hear more variations, but so far I have not. What I want to do is go way back. It's very easy to say, well, the college began in 1951 as an extension of St. Joseph's College in Rensselaer. Classes were offered at Fishkill High School. And it's very easy to say something like that, but, well, why did it start? Why did St. Joseph's College, an all-male institution at that time in Jasper County, Indiana, why would they want to start an extension in the northwest corner of Lake County? It's a good question. And secondly, why would they start the extension in 1951? What was going on at that time? So I will try to address those questions and more. I want to go way back though, to the very way back in time to St. Gaspar del Popolo. That's the picture that I have. The founder of the Congregation of the Precious Blood. And even though the institutions are separate now, with separate charters since 1973, that the same religious order continues to sponsor both institutions. So the mission of the college has a lot to do with the mission of the precious blood, is what I've discovered. But a little bit about who was St. Gaspar. Well, he was born in Rome, died in Rome. He lived from 1786 to 1837. And during the Napoleonic Wars, the Italian countryside was ravaged, and not unusual for in any kind of war. But people were being left behind, neglected, weren't being ministered to, in the countryside, in particular around Rome. And Gaspar decided something needed to be done. These were poor people left behind, off to the side, underserved or not being served at all, and somebody needed to help them both spiritually and temporally. So he took upon himself the responsibility to minister to their needs and attracted a following eventually. And in 1815, the Congregation of the Precious Blood was founded. So Gaspar ministered to prisoners. He himself was in prison for refusing to give the oath to Napoleon that time. So he knew what was going on in the prisons and the help that they needed. But think, people underserved, kind of left behind, marginalized, a key component of the mission of the Congregation of the Precious Blood. So let's move ahead to 1843. What brought the group to this country? Father Francis de Sales Brunner was invited by the Bishop of Cincinnati, Ohio, to bring a group, priests and brothers, and minister to German immigrants that weren't being served well enough. So that's was the beginning of the Cincinnati province of the Precious Blood, and the order spread through various parts of Ohio and into Indiana. And in 1888, the bishop of the Diocese of Fort Wayne, which extended across a wide stretch of northern Indiana, a former member of the Precious Blood congregation, invited the Precious Blood Fathers to found a college, a Catholic college, on a tract of land that the diocese had purchased. So the bishop, Joseph Dwenger of Fort Wayne, so the name St. Joseph's College comes from him, Bishop Joseph Dwenger of Fort Wayne. So the Precious Blood agreed to staff the college, and they also managed an Indian school for a number of years near that site. And the college was chartered then in 1889 and opened its doors in 1891. So St. Joseph's College. It was an all-male institution and a two-year institution initially. In 1836, it became. 1936, it became a four-year degree institution. It's known for a number of things. From 1944 to 74, it hosted the Chicago Bears for their summer training camps, and it's nationally acclaimed today for its core program, which spreads general education over 4 years, freshman through senior year. Presents the courses in integrated fashion, focusing on issues and problems, and which culminates in a research project, individual research paper project at the end. So that's so the college is nationally known for this integrated program. So what was going on then? Again, let's get back to 1951. A little bit before then, in 1944, let me just go on up here. Gaspar del Buffalo was known for his preaching ability, and that's an image of him from a church in Ohio. And St. Joseph's College, a lovely campus. Let's see, with a distinctive chapel and a reflecting pool. I attended a couple of workshops in 2008 and 2009, and some of my best memories come from early morning walks around that reflecting pool down the road. And that's even a little better image of the chapel and the reflecting pool. So we're going to go forward. 1944, this was the first year that the Chicago Bears trained on the campus. And it was also the year that President Franklin Roosevelt signed the GI Bill. The GI Bill provided money for tuition and living expenses at colleges, private or public institutions, and it covered just most of their expenses at that time. So the result was a major influx into higher education. In 1946, St. Joseph's College experienced its largest enrollment to date, with the influx of veterans using the GI Bill coming in after World War II. The following year, in 1947, half the college students in the country were using the GI Bill. I mean, that's a staggering figure. And of course, this was noticed. Other places noticed this too. And in Purdue and IU, for example, they expanded their extension activities beginning in 1946, expanded throughout the state of Indiana and in Lake County as well. IU in East Chicago, Gary, and Purdue, and Hammond. I could go. Well, there was no Catholic church-affiliated college in Lake County, so the St. Joseph's looked into the possibility. Now, another connection, though, well, why would St. Joseph's be interested in this area at all? In the 1920s, St. John the Baptist Catholic Parish here in Whiting, it was founded largely by Slovak immigrants. That was the dominant ethnic group. And in the mid-20s, the founding priest, Father Raishani, needed an assistant. an assistant who could speak and understand Slovak, and a priest from St. Joseph's College, a biology professor, Father John Coster, just fit the bill perfectly. So he came in and became pastor, spearheaded the building of the church, the largest, most imposing, most impressive church in the Whiting-Robertsdale area. And the Precious Blood then continued to service and manage the parish, and they still do today, to this very day. The Precious Blood staff the parish, and with the blessing of the bishop. So in 1938, Father John Lefko was ordained priest. He came from a tough area in the Bronx, in New York. And his first, he was assigned immediately to St. John's. He was also conversant in Slovak and other languages as well. So he served there for 15 years, 7 years as assistant, 8 years as pastor, and he was responsible for building the new school. Well, it was, of course, it was new. They needed a new school, and he led the effort. And the result was a school that was well ahead of its time. It's still quite imposing architecturally. Father Lefko studied architecture at Indiana University School Architecture, and became a member of the commission that would look into examining schools across the state. But he really invigorated the parish. He revitalized the Marian Theater Guild group, the school, and when he left the parish in 1953. But it was very well established. The school was paid for, almost paid for when it was completed. Everything was going well. Father Lefko would later on become the first president of Calumet College. But so there's the connection between the Precious Blood at St. Joseph's College and the Whiting-Robertsdale area. So the interest in this northwest corner of Lake County. In 1950, the president of St. Joseph's organized a faculty committee, a group of 3, to investigate the possibility of establishing an extension in this area. It was called Operation South Shore. An interesting name, Operation South Shore. So the 3 faculty members came up with a positive recommendation overall and presented it to the board of directors in April of 1951, and a very interesting comment from they acknowledged that the success of the extension was not entirely predictable. I love that statement. Not entirely predictable. And they raised 3 concerns, interestingly enough. Concerns about faculty finding qualified, suitable faculty in the area, library resources, having enough library resources, and getting enough support from pastors, local pastors. There were some 70 parishes, I read, in the Calumet region at that time. Well, One of the faculty members was Father Henry J. Martin. He canvassed the parishioners, the parishes, and found strong support. He was named the first director of what would become the Calumet Center, St. Joseph's College, Calumet Center Extension. And so the board approved the resolution to establish the extension on the condition that after suitable publicity, that the enrollment be sufficient. And it turned out, that it was sufficient. And I'd like to too is show you. This is the very first. It was a four-sided flyer. Just the very first class schedule. An information sheet. St. Joseph's College, the Hoffman address in Hammond. Go on. So the purpose, you can see we get purpose on the provide within the framework of Catholic thought. Those are the words that I want to instruction. Courses which will contribute to the progress between the Skiba and which may also meet the needs of the adult society. So, contribute to the progress of students seeking a degree and contribute to the betterment of the Calumet region as well. Now, within that, the phrase within the framework of Catholic thought would change. So the subsequent year, it would change, and it would remain changed afterwards as well. What's that? Okay. So I will take a look at the schedule of courses. Interesting, who could enroll in the courses? Under 21 with just a high school diploma. Interesting, 21 and older, a high school diploma was not necessarily required, but that was it. The classes met on Tuesday and Thursday evenings at first from 7:15 to 9:45. They were just in the evening. Later on, though, they would meet Monday through Thursday, some Friday classes, and Saturday morning classes for education. They were taught at Bishop Knoll. This is a new wing at that time of Bishop Knoll High School, classrooms that were available. And look at that, $7 per credit hour. Yeah, but even with the rate today, the credit hour rate is $550 per credit hour. So just compare, $7, 1951 to 500. But there is a full-time fee, and there are the fee structure is a little bit different for students taking 12 to 18 hours. There's a full-time fee for the spring, fall and spring semesters currently costs, let's see, 17,300. So it's a big difference in cost from then and now. So who will teach the courses? Well, some faculty members from the Rensselaer campus. In fact, 10 courses ran, as I'll show you, the first semester. And 6 of them were taught by Rensselaer faculty, and 4 with faculty from the Calumet Chicago area. The accreditation, students didn't have to worry because the accreditation was under the umbrella of the Rensselaer campus. Let's look at what courses were proposed and what courses were actually The reason I'm spending a little time on this too is that these courses really set a pattern for future offerings. So Christian marriage and the family. For a 4-year degree at that time, students were required to take 12 hours of theology and 12 hours of philosophy. So all regardless of major.
Could you speak up a little bit? It's hard to hear in the back, Walter.
Okay, I'm trying.
Okay.
They were, can you hear me if I stand out a little bit?
Yeah, come closer.
Closer. Okay. They were, so some general education classes were offered in there, theology, psychology, world literature, that's another gen ed course. Public speaking, fundamentals of speech it was called. Cultural anthropology. More gen ed. Medieval history, music, mass music, art forms, what it's called. And there was one non-credit course in beginning shorthand. One non-credit course was proposed. What was actually offered? In other words, what courses ran? This is kind of interesting. And what enrollment was there? So you can see that general psychology he had the largest enrollment. And some courses didn't run, like cultural anthropology didn't run, the music class didn't run, but notice elements of acting. That was not in the original schedule. 23 students, though. This course was not offered at Bishop Knoll, but it was offered in the basement of St. John's School. St. John, one of the rooms, St. John's Parochial Center, as it was called. And most of the students were active with the Marian Theater Guild at St. John's. And Father Lefko had really reinvigorated the group when he was pastor. The instructor was John Bettenbender, who directed plays at places like Loyola in Chicago, but directed professionally and in various locations, including off-Broadway as well. So what's significant about him is that from 1964 to 1970, he came on full-time, directing this as director of the speech and theater program, and greatly raised the level of professionalism in the theater offerings of the college. Greatly raised the level. In fact, I was talking with an alumnus yesterday who was active in theater at that time, and he recalled, and I recall too, something like this. When Bettenbender first came in, well, students would be cast, and somebody might miss just for no reason, come late, maybe come and force around a little bit their rehearsal. So at one point, he said, he just got everybody's attention and said, look, if you're here to have fun, there's the door. He said, you can leave right now. This is not for you. He said, theater this is serious work that we're doing. You know, there may be some fun once in a while, but this is serious business, it's work. He meant it. And that's the kind of atmosphere. You know, you didn't see latecomers. If anybody missed, they had a very good reason for missing rehearsal. That was the kind of atmosphere that he established. One of maybe his best production, I did not say, I was not here at that time, but he directed Oedipus Rex, Sophocles, the classical Greek play, Oedipus Rex, and I've been told from participants and people who saw it that was just a fantastic production of Oedipus Rex. Anybody remember that, or from the Chicago period? The course has set a pattern for future offerings. I mentioned general education, but also business. The two, the accounting, the salesmanship class, and there were two education courses added. As you can see, educational psychology, counseling, and guidance. Business, the business management and education, elementary and secondary, would become the largest enrolled programs through the years at the school.
Okay? Take care.
Yeah. Business management. And then later, a little bit later, law enforcement, that morphed public to criminal justice and public safety would become big, and science has grown a lot recently too. So the total listed was 120, but if you look at the numbers, men and women, they don't quite balance out, but it's very common. And I noticed looking at enrollment reports from the 1950s, they don't always gel. And, but anyway, 120 or 124 students, as it's reported elsewhere, was a good sign for the future. So, the extension operation continued. Through the 1950s, enrollments grew. And by 1960, then, the school was ready to become the first four-year degree granting institution in Northwest Indiana, first in Lake County. Well, yeah, we'll say Lake County because Valparaiso was there in Porter County, but the first 4-year degree granting institution. But a couple of notes from the 1950s, a forgotten era for the most part. One, here in Whiting, from 1953 to 55, the Knights of Columbus Hall, that's a Catholic organization, was located on 119th Street in downtown Whiting. And for those from 53 to 55, the hall, the space was used as the office of the Calumet Center. It was also used for art classes as well. Yeah, art classes. So art classes were taught in Whiting for a couple of years, and frequently courses would be taught together, stacked together, so that common painting and drawing might be taught the same night, and then ceramics and sculpture might be taught together on a different night. But there was a Whiting connection to that. A program that began in the mid-1950s. It continued into 1964, and then, then came back later. Law enforcement and corrections. So the connection to law enforcement goes way back to the mid-1950s. And it's interesting to note that one of the instructors was the legendary Whiting judge, William Obermiller. And he was known, he established a national reputation for the kind of unique punishments he gave out. He became known as the spanking judge. Yeah. In fact, one juvenile who called his mother an idiot in court, something like that. So Obermiller said, no, it's not something you do. So he ordered the bailiff to spank. Yeah, that's true. Another group of juveniles, they were, I guess, picked up a number of times for shooting fireworks. So what did he do to them? Well, he had them clean and paint the iron fence outside the Whiting Public Library. There, had them do it. He would have others, juveniles, clean up the beaches, and he would personally supervise their work as well to make sure they got the job done right. He had one high school dropout arrested for reckless driving, worked 6 months in the city garage, some punishments. And by all accounts, almost all of the juveniles didn't repeat the offense again. So they kind of learned their lesson, and their grades gradually improved by all accounts. But he was one of the instructors in the program. So 1960, the college established its the beginnings of a 4-year degree program. Again, the very first in Lake County to do so. And let's take a look at some comments. But first, I just want to. This is is from a later brochure, in fact, a year later, 1952. Purpose. I just want to integrate these courses with basic Christian principles. Remember the Catholic law, basic Christian principles, and this is the term that was used all the time later. But here we go. This was the main building. And for 3 years, it was the only building in the East Chicago campus, 4721 Indianapolis Boulevard. You see the St. Joseph College sign. And Calumet Center, this is called St. Joseph's College Calumet Center. You can see on the windows. And you also see the logo from Rensselaer. I can't tell if I see it or not. St. Joseph's College. Latin, this is Latin term, moralitas, scientia, religio. So morality, ethics, scientia, knowledge, including science, and religio, religion, or divinity. I've seen the translation too. So those three pillars. This is the logo from St. Joseph's College in Rensselaer. So here's another shot a little bit later from this is from the early 1970s. But for 3 years, from 1960 to the spring of '63, the entire college was housed in one building. You might say, well, there are 2 buildings here. And yes, that's true. This building, the Carlin building, as it was called, was not used for classes. It had a few apartments for rental apartments. Precious Blood priests would stay there, and some would live there. There was kitchen space and a dining room space as well. And in the bottom, there was a business until 1966. It was a shoe repair business. And that goes. But when the business closed, then the college converted the space into a secretarial pool. Pre-computer days, so secretaries for typing, for various machines, copy machines and the like, but that's where all the copying and that kind of work was done. But everything was in the 4721 building. When I say everything, that meant supposedly there was space for 11 classrooms. There was a lounge for students, a lounge for faculty, administrative offices, some faculty offices, the science lab was in there, a small bookstore, even though the library was there. It was hard to believe everything fit into that one building. And I asked, I talked with some alumni who attended it at that time. I said, wasn't it crowded? How did you feel? And they all said, no, it didn't seem crowded. One of the reasons was that so many students worked part-time, some worked full-time. So they attended classes and then afterwards left. So that there was a relatively small group that stayed around more often, or for a good part of the day. Many students were working. Jobs were plentiful, unlike today. It's been a long time, but college students could get jobs in the mills, the big mills or the small mills in the area, and they could work part-time, some worked full-time. And if someone worked in the summer in the mills, 10 weeks, 13 weeks, they could make enough money to pay an entire year's tuition and books very easily. Those opportunities are long gone. And there were jobs for women, not in the mills, but there were jobs in the area for women as well. So many students, most students actually worked at that time. But a couple of good stories that testify to the college's mission at the time. And what I said before about students feeling accepted, welcome. Now, one student from a working class family, which was very typical, part of the Precious Blood, I think the Precious Blood mission, serving the underserved, and in that case, working class families and minorities going onward. But he came from a working class family. His father was out of work at one point, and he was the only one who was working in one of the smaller mills, and the only one bringing in any kind of revenue for the family. And he felt under a lot of pressure. And at one point, he just had pretty much had it. And so he went to the registrar's office, Father Cletus Kern, at the time, and said, I need to withdraw from classes. I just can't do it with all this pressure on me. Now, Father Kern said, well, let's talk further about this. Could you come back in a few days? Let's set up another meeting and talk about this. And the student said, well, okay, all right, we'll need to meet again. So several days later, they met again, and this time there was a board member, a member of the board of directors, sitting with Father Kern in the office, and something he didn't see at first, but there was a pile of money on the table on the end of the desk. And the board member said to him, look, it's here, just take it, it's yours. This will cover your semester's tuition and more. And you'll be all set. You don't have to leave. You could stay in school. And the student thought, well, I can't accept this gift. I think it's not fair. And the board member's response was, consider it a loan. He said, when you graduate, when you're successful, you might come back and teach a course here sometime. Just donate your salary for the first class. Give it back. You'll have a chance to repay this loan. I said, well, okay, that's a challenge. He took it as a challenge. He'll try it. So he took the money and did well, graduated, went on a successful career teaching, became superintendent in a couple of places, and taught some courses part-time, and donated his, repaid his loan, and he continued to donate part of his salary as an adjunct faculty member. But the mission in action. Another, I think, a good story comes from a sociology professor, Alec Laser, the first full-time faculty member hired at the college. But he encouraged students to find ways to put into practice what they were learning in class. Learning in class about social justice, discrimination, things like that, and see what you could find. Well, interestingly enough, there was a diner next door, George's Diner, that established in 1937. Served very good hamburgers, good food, reasonably priced. You could get, when I was a student there, you could get a double cheeseburger if you wanted, fries, coleslaw, a drink for 70 cents. George's, yeah, 70 cents. Lunch. So it was a good place and a good gathering place. Faculty went there, mingled with students freely, but there was one drawback. George wouldn't serve black students or black people in general, and then word got around that. So a few of Professor Laser's students decided, well, let's see what we can do about it, see if we can do anything about this. So they went into George's. Well, there were three white guys and with a black friend, fellow student and friend of theirs, that went in for breakfast, and they gave a pretty good size order. The waitress took the white student's order, but would not take the order of the black student. And when they complained, I guess George came up to the table and said, this is a business, and I have the right to serve who I want. Refuse service if I wish. Okay, they said, all right. So the waitress then later on brought out and they prepared their food, brought it out to the table, and served the three guys. Of course, the black person didn't get any food. But instead, when they got the food, they just got up. They all got up and walked out without eating anything or paying anything for the bill. And evidently George got the message, because there was never an issue that I was aware of, or anyone that he refused to serve black students or anyone else after that. So there's another picture. Familiar winter seat. I'll get to the fine art skills in a little bit later. I'm showing you this. This is very early. They must have very early. The college acquired the building and began to remodel it. Note the sign there, right? Apparently. Okay. Of course, Riley, the name's from Colonel Walter J. Riley, a banker and real estate person. First National Bank, vice president and chairman of the board, and influential real estate businessman as well. So what does this look like today? There it is. We took some pictures recently. What do you see there? Riley Plaza. That's what the site looks like today. Plaza. No. There's a scratch page. And some other stores there. This is what the area looks like today. This is the Lag Inn. A neighborhood bar on the corner of Olcott and 148. Nice, quiet place in the evening, as TV said. This is from the 70s, from the 1973 yearbook. And as you can see, the wagon is still there today. Now this picture might seem strange at first, but if you look at the address, 4708, Mosey hair braiding. This was the building that was rented by the college as the administrative office from 1955 to 1960. And it was also used for art classes. So I guess the braiding, the hair braiding fits in quite well with the art classes that we taught there. But that's what it's used for today. More. The Lewin Student Center. And the name comes from Irv Lewin, a longtime chairman of the board at the college. And 1967, the college applied for separate accreditation or accreditation as a separate campus from Rensselaer. And it got the accreditation, but the biggest concerns were finance. Well, the biggest concern was financing. Yeah, the college was in debt at the time. Then Father Levko took over as president, and Irv Lewin picked up the mortgage on the student center and paid it off several years later. And there was a plan before the decision to move to Whiting to it was called New Horizons under a capital campaign, and it would build upwards, multi-stories. So expanded space for lounges, for recreational facilities. But this opened in 1962. Communications Center, an old building converted into it. It was, it had a radio, television studio, facilities, photography lab, and funded with a grant from the Anderson Foundation, $250,000 grant. And the Communications Center eventually moved here. That's a long story, but it's another example of the bottom building there. Knights of the Pythias Wall, another fraternal organization, but it was another old building converted into for college use. The main building, by the way, was an old furniture store. Fine Arts building, very interesting design that I think holds up well today. Walsh Hall, another converted, it had space, 170 seat lecture hall. Raccoon Park, outdoors. And then the place looked like a campus. It felt like a campus. Especially library, benches, and you could see students occupying benches. seen looking out towards Indianapolis Boulevard. It felt like a campus. Good restaurants within walking distance, drugstore, various stores, bank, etc. If you needed something, it's right there. There was a real feeling of the campus. And when we moved here, students would say, well, East Chicago, it felt comfortable. And here it felt more like a building, taking classes in a building. But maybe eventually could become comfortable, but that was just a very different feeling. In fact, I just heard that comment yesterday from so I just want to point out some activities. Turtle races. Initiated by a fraternity. Card playing is very popular. This is a arts tournament. And the college had a very active intramural sports program, and including touch football, as you can see here, played in Kosciuszko or Kosciuszko Park on Sunday afternoons in the fall, football games. And there was an all-girls team that formed in 1971, an all-girls team. But a very interesting note, and I'm going to end this very quickly, that in 1968, the Student Athletic Committee made a formal proposal for the college to join NAIA because they wanted, Purdue was doing that. Purdue had NIU. Purdue joined both the NAIA and NCAA, and students wanted to engage in intercollegiate competition. But their proposal was not worked out in sufficient detail, and the Dean of Students expressed reservations. Athletics and scholarship don't necessarily go hand in hand, but it was never followed up until 2000, when the current athletic program began. But my belief after looking through this, that if the school had joined the NAIA, I think the enrollment would have stabilized more because it began to decline after 1971, 72, and an athletic program at that time, I think might have reversed that decline. But 71, 72 was the high point of, there were close to 1,700 students that fall, and the year over 39,500 credit hours approximately. That was the biggest year in the college's history. And then enrollment began to decline gradually. We moved here in January 1976, but when we moved here, the enrollment that spring was a little over 1,500, just to give you some idea. The enrollment today, this past fall, for all levels, when I say all levels, the master's program, so we have the accelerated undergraduate, and the traditional 990 is what I counted total students, just to give you some comparison today. In 1971, there were 20% of students were classified as minorities, and that's all. That was the label then. The African Americans, Hispanics, Native Americans, they were all just lumped under minorities, and that was high for that time. But today, the minorities are over 50% of our enrollment. Hispanics last year were 32%, and were designated as the only Hispanic-serving institution in the state of Indiana. Okay, I was hoping to go into some problems with the move, but I think I've said enough for the time being. And you may have some questions or comments of any kind that you want to make. Go ahead.
What brought about the change from the terminology College of St. Joe to the name Calumet College? When did that occur and
Good
why?
question. Yeah, very good question. There were several different names, actually. St. Joseph's College, Calumet Center, then 19 Calumet Campus, St. Joseph's Calumet College, 1971. But 1973, the college officially separated from Rensselaer, got its own distinctive charter, and named Calumet College. November 1973 is when it occurred. Then St. Joseph was added in 1987. Calumet College of St. Joseph, and the reason it was taken away was to distinguish the schools as two separate institutions. The reason it was added back, I think, pressure from alumni and the bishop, just to signify Catholic identity. That it's not just a community college, but there's a Catholic identity. And that's it. Go ahead.
Was this building purchased or was it donated to the college from? This was Standard Oil at the time, I believe.
Yes, this was the research and development complex for Standard Oil, and it was donated or given to the college at the end of 1973. So it was a complex, 18 buildings, and sometimes, one building may have been divided into three parts, but yes, this was donated.
Maybe I'm a non-licensed, but there were a number of buildings. There was another large building to the south. Was that also donated and then sold to LTD?
That's correct. Yeah, the college did own that 2,500 building and other buildings at one time.
And I said donated, but it probably sold to LTD.
Sold, yeah, the college sold the building, right. But the reason Amico, at the time, it's now BP, but Amico moved their research and development facilities to Naperville. And according to their own public relations release, they said, well, they considered a number of offers to take this property, but they decided to give it to the college because they wanted the buildings to be part of the community and used by the community in a positive way, and that the college had a good track record and would continue to serve the community even better, fulfill its mission, add more programs, and do its job even better. That's what was said. But it went into debt.
Yeah. One more question.
Yeah.
There used to be an old building, like a big house that was in the far south end of the property, which I believe now has been moved. But what's the story about that? Is that building donated to the college? What was that originally?
The Schmidt House is probably what you're thinking. It was Pete Schmidt, the former owner of Phil Schmidt and Son restaurant. I gave the restaurant to the college. The college eventually sold it, but then he asked that a house be built for him on the property. So the house was built for him. Then he died some years later. The house was given to the college. The president, Dennis Rittenmeyer, lived there for a while and hosted parties. Today, it's on the Lost Marsh Golf Course.
It's the clubhouse, the lower clubhouse.
The lower clubhouse, I guess you could say, on Lost Marsh Golf Course.
They're no longer owned by the college.
No.
City of Hammond,
City of Hammond,
or
right.
Port Authority.
Yeah. Any other question? Yeah, there's a lot of drama in the move from here, but that would take a little too long to go into. Going into
Your
debt.
next presentation. Your next presentation.
Yeah, but I hope I've whetted your appetite for for more information, and yeah, there's a lot of stories here.
I think the young lady over there has a question.
Go ahead.
Actually, if I was not able to hear, why exactly did we separate from St. Joseph's and Russell?
I didn't hear you.
I'm not sure if I wasn't able to listen, but did you mention why we separated from Rensselaer?
Why we separated from Rensselaer? Well, the Precious Blood, managed both places. There were some common elements, but they became quite different institutions. This one in a very urban setting, Rensselaer in the more rural and a residential campus at the time. Different operations, and they couldn't just function as one institution. Another reason had to do with fundraising. Potential donors would say, well, I gave to St. Joe's. When say St. Joseph's College in Rensselaer was seeking funding, well, I gave, meaning I gave to St. Joe Calumet, or vice versa. Well, I gave to Calumet seeking funding, and see, I already gave to St. Joe's. So that was another reason for the separation. But they became different operations, and with different emphases. Right. Any other questions?
All right. Put them on the schedule next year so we can hear them next. I'm not putting too much pressure on you. No, it's all right.